I'd like to begin this morning with a very unscientific poll. I want to do a straw poll, which just means if you are the correct demographic, then I want you to answer the one question of our unscientific poll this morning. You are in the correct demographic if you are age 30 or over, okay? So if you're age 30 or over, I would like you to raise your hand if you have ever begun a story or even just a sentence with the phrase, "Well, when I was a kid." Oh, I believe we've got about 100% on our unscientific poll. We do this sometimes because we are nostalgic, sometimes because we're thinking back to something. When I was a kid, we still had drive-in theaters. Or when I was a kid, for some of you, the drugstore was also a soda shop. Did I go back far enough yet? Sometimes, though, when we do this, when we say, "when I was a kid," we adopt this superior tone as though we were better at being kids than the current generation of kids. At least when I was a kid, we had sandlot baseball games instead of video games. At least when I was a kid, we rode our bikes all summer instead of fiddling around on social media all the time. Like we invented sandlot baseball and bicycles and drive-in theaters or something. We do this, don't we? So sometimes we think "when I was a kid" means I did it better. But you know what I've never heard? I've never heard anyone start with the sentence "when I was a kid" and finish "when I was a kid, we were really good at relationships." Right? Because we weren't. We were not good at relationships, were we? It took us a long time to figure out how to do this well. Well, this morning, I'm picking up where Gerald left off last week. Gerald started us on this journey through the dangers of social distancing, and he talked about how we are created for these actual live relationships, these face-to-face relationships with each other, and we all agreed, and we all said, "Yes, you're right, that's what we were created for." And I've been asked this morning to take that to the next layer of what does it mean for young people today? How does this specifically affect young people? Well, as you may be aware already, this has greater implications for young people than it does even for us as adults. Young people in the social development stages have some unique challenges. In fact, even more unique challenges in the last couple years. I think there's been a little bit of a perfect storm here in the last couple years, where the acceptance of virtual relationships as being normal is converging with these times of forced isolation to bring a perfect storm for young people. And let me tell you what I think the effects of this perfect storm are. The sociologists, the psychologists, the psychiatrists are all in agreement that young people today are more anxious, more stressed, more depressed, more prone to suicide. Young people today, we're going to use the term adolescence. And here's what I want you to know about adolescence today. We used to define adolescence as just the time period between you were a child, but you're not yet an adult, and adolescence is the time period in between. And we used to define this as about age 12 to about age 19. That when you turn 12, you start kind of making this transition from being a kid towards being an adult, and then when you turn 19, you're kind of in this adult range. Sociologists, social scientists, they're backing up the first part of this, so that adolescence now begins around age 10. And that's a result of some physical changes. Kids are starting puberty earlier than they used to. And it's a result of some social changes. Kids are exposed to more adult types of things sooner in their life. Their adolescence begins about age 10 now. And on the other end of the spectrum, the expectation that we've become adults, social scientists are moving that out from age 19 to about age 24. So the period of time in which young people are trying to figure out, I'm not a kid anymore, but I'm not an adult yet, that time keeps expanding and expanding. And in this time, there's all this confusion, and then we throw things at them like we use the word friend, and they say, well, I know what friend means. I have friends on Instagram. And we say, yes, but that's not exactly what we mean by friends. Some of the other effects on young people, there's a lack of empathy and intimacy and depth in relationships. It's easier than ever to keep relationships at a really shallow, kind of surfacey level. There's an easier opportunity than ever if what you want to do is hide. I think of this as all our relationships can be like a first date where we put our best foot forward all the time and we present the best version of ourselves all the time. Especially if most of my relationships are virtual, I can just let you know who I want you to think I am instead of letting you know who I actually am. This is normal. This is a different challenge than what you and I faced. There's I would say a decrease in communication skills, especially in this sense. I think it's a default position now for young people to have negative communication as the starting point. If you felt that as an adult, it is true of us adults as well, that we become in our society a default position of, I'm going to start with the negative. Here's what I don't like about you. Here's where I disagree with you. Here's where we cannot possibly be on the same page. And we start with negative, and it gets amplified in young people in adolescence. It is also more difficult than ever for adolescents to develop conflict resolution skills. I'll give you this example. If a teenage boy and girl are dating each other, and one of them decides we need to not be dating each other, it used to be that you would have to sit down with a person and have a difficult conversation, and you would have to say, here's why I think we don't date each other anymore, and it was hard and it was rough, but it was something you had to learn how to do. And today, you can break up with a text message, right? And this is real. And there's adults going, what? And there's teenagers going, yeah, that's the way we do it, okay? Because we can avoid the conflict. In fact, here's a new term for some of you adults. It's called ghosting. Because so many of my relationships have this high virtual component, if I don't want to be in relationship with you anymore, I can just stop responding to you. I can block your phone number so you can't text me anymore. I can block you on all of my social media pages. I can ghost. I can disappear from your life. And that way we don't have to work out any of our disagreements. I can just ghost. So you can see that there are some pretty unique challenges to what young people are going through today. And I'll remind you once again, we were not good at this either. We just had a different set of challenges. Here's the good news. You want good news? You want good news now, don't you? The good news is young people really, really do want to have good relationships. They just don't know how to do it. When we started a new theme in January with what we were doing on Wednesday nights with the kids, and I thought, well, we'll talk about relationships, and this will take us 3 or 4 or 5 Wednesdays, and then we'll move on to the next thing. And Shelley said, you better plan on doing that longer than 3 or 4 weeks. And I said, we'll see. And the kids had so many questions and wanted to talk about this so much. We spent the entire semester talking about relationships. What does the Bible say about them? How do we have good relationships? How do we get good at doing relationships? Because that's what they really, really wanted. So this is good news. Now, where do we go from here? Well, I think we've got two options, and there's a sort of a standard default old guy option that we slip into without thinking, which is we begin to dismiss upcoming generations because, oh, it's too late for them. The world has changed too much. They don't even know how to ride a bicycle anymore. It's hopeless. And then we start to blame coming generations for the challenges that they have, right? This is I'm the old guy, you get off my lawn, right? And this is a default position that we sometimes take. We've got that option. Or we can show them that there's a better way. Don't you think this is what the gospel has always been about? Showing people that there is a better way? Gerald teaches and coaches shooting sports with 4-H kids. And the 4-H organization has a really good way of describing, here's how you teach things to young people. You tell them and you show them, and then you do it together. I'm condensing this a little bit for this morning. Tell them what we're going to do. So if you've got a rifle and a 10-year-old, you got to tell them up front, here's all the stuff you need to know. You got to show them, here's how we handle this. You're about to give a loaded gun to a kid, right? You've got to do this together so that we work on this together so that I know that I can eventually trust you to hold the rifle by yourself and then do what you are supposed to do with it and don't do what you're not supposed to do with it. You tell them, you show them, you do it together. I want you to have that in the back of your mind for the next few minutes, because I believe that this is just a description of what Jesus was always doing with his disciples. I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to do it. We're going to do this together. And then at some point, Jesus released his disciples. Now you go do it, right? Do you see the pattern here? So put that pattern in the back of your mind. I want us to turn to Colossians chapter 3. This is page 822 if you're using the Pew Bible, the little black Bible there in your pew. Colossians chapter 3, verse 12. Because we need to start with what do we show and tell young people if we want to help them see there's a better way to do relationships. Colossians chapter 3, verse 12. Follow along and I'll read. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. Parents understand how important it is to teach a kid how to dress themselves. And Shelley's always been good at this and continues to be good at this with the little ones that we have in our home. Even when a kid is still in diapers, you can teach her, you need to put your arms up, we need to get this sleeves on and get this over your head. When a kid starts getting out of diapers, you're teaching them, you gotta pull up your underwear first before you can pull up your pants, right? You're teaching them. When you get to Thursday school, Chuck, and those boys have that big belt buckle, and you have to help them go use the restroom, and they love that belt buckle, but they don't have the first clue on how to get their pants open or not open. You got to help them. So you help them. Right, and the more they mature, the more eventually they learn to put on their own socks and shoes. And when you learn to tie your shoes, then you're really a big kid. Then I can tie my own shoes, right? And at some point, your parents let you start choosing your own clothes, and some of us are better at that than others are. Right, Chuck? Some of us are better at that than others are. And you can dress yourself. And this is the picture that Paul is giving us when he says, clothe yourselves. And he says, clothe yourselves with compassion and kindness and humility and gentleness and patience. The clothing of good relationship. Compassion, kindness, humility, patience, forgiveness. And then he drops down a little bit and he says, over all this you put on, this would be like the jacket, put on love. The things that combines them all, that brings them together in unity. Do you want to show young people that there's a better way to do relationships? Let's start right here. I need to dress myself in compassion and kindness so that they see that I care about other people. I need to wear humility so that they see I don't think more highly of myself than I should. I need to get patience out of the closet so that they understand that these things take time. I need to put on forgiveness. I need to wear this jacket of love so that the first thing a person sees about me is that because God loves me, I am free to love others. And this could be the whole sermon right here, couldn't it? I mean, just imagine for a second. Jesus talking to his disciples. This is in John chapter 13. And he does tell and show, let's do this together. He says, a new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. I showed you how to do it. Now you do it. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. I have this vision for the church. It's not really my vision. My understanding of Jesus' vision for the church is that the world looks at us. What if, when the world looks at us, what if the main thing that they saw, the main thing they came away with was, those people are really good at relationships. Those people dress themselves in kindness and compassion and humility and forgiveness and patience. If you were on the outside of that looking in, would you not want to be a part of that? Would your heart not be wide open to a person who is dressed like that and that says, I want to tell you something about the gospel? We need to show young people how to get dressed by the way we dress ourselves. So if that's what we need to show them, then what is it that we need to do? And I'm back in Colossians chapter 3 because Paul goes on here in verse 15. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you were called to peace, and be thankful. Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom through psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts. And whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. What do we need to do? We need to worship and serve together. We need to worship and serve together. I'm not sure it's even possible for me to overstate how important it is to bring your kids and your grandkids to church. Now, we'll take them if you drop them off, and we'll do all this with them. But if what you want to show them is the importance of relationships and doing it well, then you come and you tell them, show them, do it together, right? I don't think I can say it strongly enough how much it matters that a kid comes to church. Because what happens, first of all, they'll participate in this worshiping together and serving together. And they will see the things that Paul is talking about, the teaching and the admonishing and the singing and the thankfulness. But something else happens as well. When we bring young people to church, they learn how relationships should work. They come to the church family and they see people dressed in kindness and compassion. They learn how to become kind and compassionate and dress themselves in kindness and compassion. They begin to recognize the importance of not just having all my relationships be with my classmates or with my teammates. I need to have relationships with other people who are not like me. It is not an accident that we eat together on Wednesday night, and then we come in here and we sing and we read the word together. It is not an accident that we build into our worship services a time of greeting one another. We are a church who looks each other in the eye. We are face to face. We shake hands with one another, and some of us are really young and some of us are really old. But when kids come and they learn to greet each other and have actual handshakes and actual eye contact with old people, they start to figure out that people notice them and place value on them, and people love them, and their hearts are wide open when we say, God so loved you, because they've seen it. This is Evelyn with John. You've watched, Evelyn's been bringing John to church for several years. I'm sorry to pick on you, Evelyn. I'm blindsiding you here. I call him John. Does the kid sit still? Nope. So what? Right? Did he stand up when, so what? He's a lot better at it than he used to be, by the way. But Evelyn realizes what John is picking up by being here. John sees that these people notice him and they value him. And these people are clothed in humility and compassion and kindness and forgiveness and patience. John has actual conversations with actual adults now. He will speak to you. He will talk to you if you ask him. John has relationships with actual people, actual adults, because Evelyn keeps bringing him. And John's heart is wide open to hear God so loves you. It's also not an accident that we serve together. When we do Mission Big Lake, for example, when we go to South Texas Children's Home, and we go together as multiple generations and multiple families of multiple generations, our kids not only learn the importance of serving others, but they find themselves strangely attached to the people with whom they serve. We eat together, we talk together, we laugh together, all while we are dressed up in compassion and kindness and humility. And the Booth kids and the Turner kids and Maricela Aguilera they have actual relationships with actual adults because they have served alongside them. And they believe it when we sing, I am a child of God. And it's serving together in VBS. Maybe you've noticed how many teenagers Melissa recruits for Vacation Bible School. And these teenagers serve right alongside adults. And they end up clothing themselves with compassion and humility and patience. It's the grandma who has the kid over to make cookies. And let me tell you what we're going to do. Let me show you what we're going to do. We're going to do it together. It's the grandpa who says, I have some yard work I need done. I'll pay you to do this. You come over. I'll show you. I'll tell you. We'll do it together. It's Jake, my Jake, and Terry Jones. When Jake was in high school, he had a pickup truck with some issues. And the main issue at the time was that the rear differential was all jacked up. I do not know how to fix this. I could watch 100 YouTube videos and still go, Jake, I don't know. So I asked Terry Jones, who does know stuff, Terry, what should we do? And this is what Terry told me. You bring Jake and his truck. He wasn't going to take just the truck. You bring Jake and his truck. I will go through this with you. I will show you and tell you. I will tell you what parts to go get. You go get the parts. You bring Jake and the truck and the parts. And we will do this together. Man. So you get Jake in Terry's garage underneath the truck, and he's got grease dripping in his eyes, and he's learning new mechanic language, whatever that involves. And he's a mess, right? And he's frustrated, and it takes way longer. Everything takes way longer when you're fixing the truck than it's supposed to. And he's frustrated, and he comes out, and a couple of days later, he has a pickup that runs because Terry knows what he's doing, but he has something so much more valuable. Jake spent hours and hours with a man clothed in compassion and kindness and humility and patience, especially patience. There's not a trade-in for that. That's the only way that happens. We've got two choices. We can fall into the default position. We can blame the coming generation for all their shortcomings and pretend that we invented bicycles and sandlot baseball. Or we can show them that there's a better way. As we wind down here, I want you to take the blue hymnal. Everyone has a blue hymnal that's near them somewhere, because I want to show you something. And I want you to turn to page number 389 in the blue hymnal. If you have to reach one from behind you, if you have to share one with someone, that's okay. I want everyone to have a blue hymnal open to number 389. The better way is that we show students, we show adolescents how to do relationship. Because the church, what happens at the church does not stay at the church. The church is not a building or a time on the clock when we eat or sing or pray. The church is the people of God living in ongoing, face-to-face relationships with each other, and that spills over. This hymn here, this poem, a short one, as you can see. I just found this to be a good summation of what Paul was trying to say. Look at verse 1. Blessed be the tie that binds our hearts in Christian love. This is Jesus saying to his disciples, love each other as I have loved you, and you will be united, right? The fellowship of kindred minds is like to that above. In other words, when we practice this unity in relationships, we reflect what God is in Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and his unity with himself begins to be reflected in our unity with each other. There's more. Verse 2. Before our Father's throne, we pour our ardent prayers. We worship together. Our fears, our hopes, our aims are one. Our comforts and our cares. We begin to care about what's happening with the people around us. Because here it is in verse 3. We share our mutual woes, our mutual burdens bear. We bear one another's burdens. And often for each other flows the sympathizing tear. Do you want young people to grow up with empathy in their relationships? Verse 4, here's what has happened. When we asunder part, it gives us inward pain. When we can't be together, this is Paul saying, I long to be with you. This is Marla Pointer saying to me a few weeks ago, I could not stay away any longer. When we asunder part, it gives us inward pain. But we shall still be joined in heart and hope to meet again. When we're not together, our longing is to be together. If we want young people to see a better way, this is it. We clothe ourselves. We dress up in compassion and kindness and humility and patience. We worship and serve together, and social distance will become a relic. And these young people today will look back 20 years from now, and somebody will say, oh, that was the time of social distancing, and they'll say, you know what? In our church family, we didn't really do social distance. That wasn't that good for us. We did face-to-face. These are the people who showed me how to do relationships. We worked on it together. Rather than me closing in prayer, I hope you still have that blue hymnal open to number 389, because this is how I actually want to close this sermon time. I actually just want us to sing this hymn together. And some of you recognize it already, and some of you won't need me to sing it, but you'll be able to sing it and read the music and all of that stuff. But this will be our closing prayer for the sermon this morning. Let's sing this poem, Blessed Be the Tie.